Hello, this is Nitin Dahad with EE Times. And today I have a special guest with me, Robin Saxby, who needs no introduction, but was like one of the founding CEOs of ARM back in, way back now. Robin, hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you, and lovely to see you again.
Great to see you. I think you've, although like you've been in the background since you left ARM, but you've actually been doing a lot in the industry. So it'd be interesting to see what you're up to these days.
Right. So one of the things I say is retire. If you retire, you don't want to expire.
Yeah.
So when I left ARM, my basic thinking was, I'm out. It's up to the next generation to take over. So I've stayed friendly with ARM, but what ARM is doing today, it's none of my business. So I've still got a lot of friends there. We have the odd drinks in Cambridge and so on. But basically, before I left ARM, I'd made some angel investments. I'd been involved with Amadeus Venture Capital. I was involved with the University of Liverpool. I was involved with the Royal Academy of Engineering. Latterly, I've got involved with the Royal Society. So what happens is when you've retired, you get invited to do lots of things with lots of people. The other thing that's changed for me personally, we were probably the oldest grandparents in town. I was 70 when we got our first grandchild. We've now got 3, including twin boys. And then another factor that's happened to me in my working life, it was all in the Northern Hemisphere. And in my relaxed life, I've been a lot to the Southern Hemisphere. So I've seen a lot of places, having a great time. Life couldn't be better. And then the other thing I just told you, I've just had an amazing holiday in Scotland with Hebridean Princess, being to Orkneys and Shetland. And I learned an awful lot about history, basically the Stuarts, all the troubles that are happening. So you realise that human conflict has happened forever. And then this is the other thing is I recommend this place. It's on Orkney. It's called Scarra Brae.
Yes.
It is the oldest Neolithic community where you can actually see their houses, their stones, their tables. This is all made out of stone. But what you realise is the engineering was pretty good 5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about this to me, if you think about technology, human beings, human conflict's been around forever. Unfortunately, the other thing that I think about a lot is that in my working life, it was the global semiconductor industry. And again, even when I was in Motorola, we diffused chips in East Kilbride, we designed them in Geneva, we assembled them in Malaysia. It's always been a global business. That's been my life. I've always been global. Unfortunately, the reality is we now have the CHIPS Act in America and we have a Cold War on chips. So the good news is the industry stopped being global after I retired. I think that's rather unfortunate, especially when we look at all the global conflicts we have.
Well, I mean, that might be true, but every CEO I speak to still talks about 30, 30, 30 in terms of their revenue in all the different regions. And I think it's kind of what they're doing is they're grappling with trying to sort of figure out how to play the geopolitics, but also please their shareholders.
So that is true, but the other reality, and this is a particularly UK situation, if you look at how SoftBank got ARM cheap,
yes,
it was a 45% fall in the value of the pound to the Japanese yen.
Yes.
2 weeks after Brexit. That's
2016, I think it was.
And so one often thinks if that hadn't happened, and I do feel Brexit from a technology business point of view is actually the biggest own goal in my personal lifetime. You have to hope for a brighter future. But what I'm really saying is, unfortunately, for any CEO today, making decisions, long-term investments and so on, it is a lot more difficult than when I was a CEO, because predicting look at again the Strait of Hormuz crisis.
Yes.
So I consider I'm very fortunate. I was born just after World War II, and parents wanted their kids to do better than they did. I've had a lovely journey, and I retired from ARM in 2007, which was the year before 2008 and the financial crash. So I realised I've been very fortunate, and then because of that, in retirement, I'm supporting a lot of things, including various charities. I also mentioned a mental health project, and I also paint. I also make music. So this is the other good news for people who are working very hard. Retirement is an opportunity to do a lot more exciting stuff than when you had a full-time job, and I'm very fortunate that is the situation.
And I think in the industry, I see a lot of people, various generations, especially my generation and kind of our generation, I suppose, yeah, because I'm close to you. But in terms of, like, they're really still passionate about it, and
So
it's been one of the most exciting times of the industry.
Exactly. So the good news is there's a Who song, "The Kids Are All Right," right?
Yeah.
And the good news is, because I'm still very connected to a lot of universities and I see a lot of students, the good news is the kids are absolutely fine. There's the same passion, there's the same energy, there's the same intelligence, and there's a lot of good stuff happening all over the place. And again, the particular issue with AI, realistically, it's a faster way of getting answers to certain questions. The bad news is the answers it gives you can be completely wrong, so you need to challenge it. But I do find at a personal level, I can use AI, provided I control it. I use Anthropic, I use DeepSeek, and I use Google. They're the three I pick, and each of these AI tools help me do things better. But I think the bad news is, as a customer, AI is abusing me with all the services I buy. They just after my money. So this is something that's interesting, and I think the question is that there's also a question of, again, for the human race,
Yeah.
money is important, power is important. They've always been important. So I think the interesting question now is, how does this unfold? Because the positive side of AI, it can do for biology what maths did for physics, right? So
Yes.
So that's the opportunity. The question is, because again, this space is controlled by a lot of very wealthy people, I think there's serious concern that it might go wrong, and
Yeah.
that's something we need to think about.
And yeah, just to sort of lighten the tone a little bit, I really loved you did because one of the things you do is music, and just going back when I came to your house to interview when I was with the Chile back in 2006-7 time frame, and I came to your house and you had all the radio equipment, the audio equipment, the hi-fi, and you've maintained that interest in music.
Yeah. So what's actually happened is, again, as we get older, you have to decide where do you want to spend your time. So, and you could go to an awful lot of meetings, an awful lot of conferences. So one of the decisions I've made, since my radio collection is going to be inherited by my son, a major project for me right now is cataloguing all of that, repairing all of that, and I'm thinking of writing a book on it so that my son can pick up and run with the collection. So, and again, what's really interesting for me is I started with thermionic valves, not transistors. The first transistors I saw were germanium, but the nice thing about going back to the old technology for me is I can see it, I can touch it, I can solder it, I can make it work. And I find playing with the old technology as therapeutic as skiing, right? It's a lot of fun. And so the reality is, if you came back to my house, you'll see I've made a lot of progress on my radio museum.
Well, I mean, part of what I was going to lead to is, you've been playing a lot of music, and you do have a site where it is. But one of the things that really impressed me was your little balanced take on AI.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think it's balanced. So by the way, there's nothing wrong with the technology. The challenge, again, I go back to this civilization of 5,000 years ago, and the good news is I don't think we're burning witches currently, which is good news. So there is some human progress. Also, if we look at human beings, in comparison to the age of the planet, and again, we've got to think about trees and destruction and so on. So I think I've still got a sense of humor, and I'd like to think I can still be honest and objective and fair, right? And that's, I think that's kind of the engineering discipline. And then the other concern for the AI is, in engineering as well as I do, if you get the spec wrong, it doesn't work. So,
Yes.
And one of the things is AI, which doesn't really have any emotional intelligence, the opportunity for it to get the spec totally wrong is very high. But it's down to us as human beings to use the AI as a tool and not become subservient to
And
the
that's
AI.
the point of your song, which
Yeah,
I think you played to me. We could talk about lots of things. I could talk about the lessons you learned, the thoughts on the industry, but let's focus on one or two of the areas. I think you introduced me to some of the stuff you've been doing in Edinburgh and Liverpool. Just maybe tell me a couple of things that really are passionate for you right now in terms of...
Okay, so again, I have to be positive about Liverpool. So for me, as a lad born in Chesterfield, Derbyshire, I chose to go to Liverpool as my university. It was a brand new electronics department, that helped. A brand new hall of residence, that helped. But also, Liverpool still is an internationally well-connected city. And the music, again, music is one of my passions. So I chose Liverpool really more for the city and the music and so on. And I'm still a Liverpool football supporter, and
As I am.
and I'll be up in Liverpool this weekend. So my Liverpool connectivity has been the major part of my life. They made me a visiting professor at my old department a long time ago. The reality is I'm really a professor of wealth creation from technology. I'm not a deep tech guy doing the stuff like I used to, because the trouble is if you're not doing it, you lose it, right? But I've funded some startups there. I'm involved in the enterprise committee and so on. So that's the Liverpool bit. The equivalent of that with the Royal Academy of Engineering, I personally seed funded a feasibility study for the Royal Academy of Engineering to create an enterprise hub. And my point at the time was, we're appointing all these professors, but what are we doing to create wealth? The good news is the enterprise hub has been running for more than 10 years, and it's one of the most supportive, innovative tech supporting communities. So again, the business is, we can help you get some funding, we can give you some prizes, we can bring some VCs in to get your pitch. And then the other key to this is, I'm a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering, so there are something like 300 fellows of the Royal Academy of Engineering who can be mentors to any of these startups. And the basic idea is, if it's in your space, you can help them better. So that has been satisfying. And then the other thing is, it's a bit like I was watching the tribute to Kevin Keegan. I don't know if you saw that, because there's the match. And so in a way, I'm fortunate that I'm still respected and enjoyed. But what I'm saying is, all of my life has got a kind of theme to it. So I've always loved entrepreneurship. And I had a radio and TV repair business when I was 13. So the good news for me is, I've done my hobby, made it into my career. It's come back as my hobby again, but then the career bit is other startups. Again, I'm an advisor to Amadeus Venture Capital, and the particular agenda I've got at the moment, I'm not going to say I'm going to fix it, but we have so much talent in the UK, but unfortunately, what tends to happen is we create it and somebody else makes all the money out of it. So I'm hoping if we can get government, small business, large business, universities working better together with the help of the Royal Academies and so on, we might be able to get a better result. And that's my biggest sort of intellectual focus at the moment. I chair this particular committee, and that's what I'm doing. And then also going back to Liverpool, I've funded various projects. One I funded in particular, and it comes back to the AI helping, doing for biology what maths does for physics.
Yes.
So I co-funded a chair of connected mental health. So if we look at the subject of mental stuff, the problem with mental stuff as opposed to physical stuff, most of the information comes through questionnaires with the patients. But the good news is, certainly you can have some visual impact, skin colours change, heart rates change and so on. So I'm and Liverpool's done quite well because they've got some good funding. So Liverpool, again, as one of the poorest communities, has got a good user base to test out the mental technologies to see if they work. So that's another thing that is quite exciting. Also with Liverpool, there's a move to moving out of London and so on. So again, I've been connected to the Andy Burnhams in Manchester, so again, I've got a passionate, positive side of the north. That isn't to knock the south. So again, let's be fair to Oxford and Cambridge and London. The reality is, centres of excellence are a good idea, and the reality of Oxford, Cambridge and so on, they're older, therefore they've got more establishment. So it isn't like one is better or the other is better. It's about connecting the best of the best. And this comes back to, so Themis is doing a 50-year conference on semiconductors, so he's asked me to give a
This
keynote.
is Edinburgh.
This is Edinburgh, this particular one. But again, I've got something in Southampton. So what's happened to me is, there's another joke. University of Liverpool gave me an honorary doctorate, which I gratefully accepted. And then I was offered the second honorary doctorate. I said, can't you give that to somebody else? I don't need one. But that offended them. Now I've collected a few honorary doctorates. And through that, I've got various connections to various universities. The other thing I want to say about the academics, I think it's very hard for the academics when government policy changes and funding changes. Our universities right now, unless they're very wealthy, are in a financial crisis. So we have a few challenges, but I'd like to think through the contacts I have, I might be able to help a little bit.
Yeah, I followed you, not followed you as in, our interactions have started like when I was editor of a magazine back in '86, and you were at ES2, European Silicon Strategies.
Yeah.
And then like when you signed the license with with GC Plessey Semiconductors, I was there, and then in the 90s, I remember.
So what's really interesting for me, this is another true story, which is really fascinating. So GC Plessey Semiconductors probably had more impact on my life than anything, and I'll tell you why. My first job, I was designing color television receivers. These were analog circuits, and GC Plessey built the chip that I designed, which contained 50 resistors and 50 transistors. It was a color TV decoder. That's what it was.
Wow.
So Plessey was there then, and then Plessey again was the first ARM paying licensee.
Yeah, you came up to our office and we signed the whatever. Yes.
Yeah, and then the other thing that's interesting now. So again, with my startup activity, you probably know that Plessey Semiconductors was a startup. Michael Legoff was the CEO, and that's one of the things I put some money in. I don't know if you're aware about this, but they're doing micro LEDs. Yes. And the good news, something positive to say about Meta, they were running out of cash, and Meta has funded a serious upgrade in the wafer fab and so on. And the other good news for me personally, this is one investment where I didn't lose any money. I actually made a little bit because I'd loaned the money to Plessey as a loan, and when Meta got involved, they paid me my loan back with interest. So that's a bit of good news.
That is, and I think my point was followed. But one of the things I think I learned from you with my interactions, especially in the 90s when you used to fly around everywhere, we used to meet at airport lounges or airplanes when you were on, and I was like, you always gave me the thing about, well, you need to be where the business is, and I think that's a message. I mean, we're filming this at the first TechWorks UK conference in August in London here, and one of the key messages is how do we build and scale that UK innovation, UK growth, and I think learning from you has been like you do that and then you go out to where it's needed.
So, but this is what I also realised. So I joined Motorola Semiconductors in 1973. Back then, Motorola, Texas Instruments, they were all investing in the UK. They were building wafer fabs here because their market was Europe. And so what I realised is I've been trained the American way from 73. ES2 again, the founders of of ES2 had come from National Semiconductor, Texas Instruments, Motorola, etc. And then again founding ARM. What attracted me to take the ARM job wasn't the Acorn technology. It was actually that VLSI Technology with their design tools, and they were all my friends, and Apple, they were my friends. And so again, from a UK point of view, you might say this technology came out of Cambridge. The reality is the prototype absolutely came out of Cambridge, and it was brilliant, but the business model and the evolution of that was global from day one. And that really comes down to my experience also with ES2. I was the president of the US operations, so that's when I had a desk in Silicon Valley as well as one in Bracknell. So again, the opportunity of how did this work for me? The reason why this worked for me was I'd been to Japan a lot, I'd been to America a lot, I'd been to Europe a lot, so I was traveling, so I could see, I had a whole world picture, and I wasn't myopic to any one zone or whatever. And again, there's talent everywhere on this planet, right?
Definitely.
And again, the other thing that's encouraging with the university, we have some very good universities, we have some very good research, there's a lot of talent. The question I think for the country, because we do need to improve our economic situation, is we need to generate wealth and we need to generate jobs.
And that's kind of where people like you and people who want to do good for society are kind of trying to contribute.
We try, but there are times when you get quite worried.
Yeah. Changing topics, what are the things that you'd want to say to sort of young people in the industry right now? And I think sometimes people think they're just working like non-stop. There's a lot of this 24/7 working, whatever.
It's really tough, yeah. So my starting point, again, in any interview I do, is to talk to the person and get to know them as a human being, to try and understand what their passions are, and then explore those. Because the other problem, again, this is the problem with academic situation, you've got to pass the best grades, you're in a competitive situation. Business, design, because you need teams, it's all about collaboration, and that's the opposite of competing for the best exam results. So my starting point is to try and understand what motivates the individual you're talking to. And then again, when I give a lot of advice to a lot of people who've got this job or that job offer, what should they take? And the other thing I say is, you need to go in a place where you are in the right cultural fit. So you can have this culture, have that culture, have the other culture. It doesn't mean this culture is better than that culture. It just means they're different. And so the reality is cultural. If you enjoy going to work, if you're motivated to do more than your best, and if you're working with good people as a kid, that's the best place to be. And the other challenge today, I think, is particularly with all the online nonsense that comes into our inboxes, is how to manage your time effectively. And then the other thing is work-life balance in my day was difficult.
Yeah.
But I think, again, this is the downside of the ARM technology, all these iPhones and all these iPods, always online, it's a pressure. So it's about, for you as the individual, what motivates you? And then when I understand that, my starting point would be, if I understand what motivates you, what I'd like to do is help you work out how you can do what you want to do, not about what I think you should do or whatever. So it's about giving the freedom to the people. And then the other thing where I'm very fortunate is, because I have my hobbies of my music, because I have my hobbies of my skiing, because I support Liverpool Football Club, because I love lots of music, we all need time to take a break, switch off, chill, and so on. So again, I think hobbies, and the other key to this is personal relationships. So again, I'm very lucky that my wife and I in Scotland on the Isle of Skye, we celebrated our 56th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
And that's quite nice. But we have another joke about this, that the reason why we get on so well is we don't spend too much time together. Patty can do she's with friends in London right now. I'm here at this conference. So I think individual space is important. And then I think care for one's family, extended family, is also very important.
Yeah. I won't share it now, but I was watching once at an Indian stand-up comedian show in Regent's Park in London, and he picked on me and my wife, and he said, "Why have you stayed for so long?" Because she said he travels for work.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's good.
That's what my wife said to me as well. So that's why it's good we're talking. Our wives will still put up with us.
I mean, it's been a pleasure talking to you, but any final thoughts you want to give to our audience, E-Times audience?
One of the things I'm trying to get my head around, I'm sure you'll get this, and because again, I've talked to the CEO of Fractal, Walter, right? So one of the things that I've realized is the world of chips, systems, and so on, three-dimensional software, it's incredibly complicated. And one of the things, so if you're designing your own circuit, and you're only looking at chips on a flat level, it's easy to work things out. What I find is really fascinating now is how, when it comes to the design, you make the decisions. What do you focus on? What do you not focus on? Where do you use the tools? How they work? So what I'm saying is the technology has become a lot more expensive, and it's become a lot more complex. And the key, by the way, is this even goes back to on. You've got the physical layout, you've got the software, you've got the systems architecture. The complexity of making all this work well requires stronger teams than ever, and you need, same as a football team, you need the best player in each position, right?
And as long as they're red.
I'm not going to be too parochial about football teams. I'm going to be more equal opportunity.
Good.
But my wife who's the strong red, because she's from Liverpool. And again, the story with my wife, my home team was Chesterfield. They were rubbish. I took her to a game at Saltergate. She wasn't very impressed, but my uncle Alfred played left back for Chesterfield, and she introduced me to Anfield, which was a new level for me. I'm very happy to be a red. But by the way, without some competition, there's no game. So, and again, that's the other good thing about football. It's a real, for the people in Liverpool who work hard, the game is the highlight of their week. And so the social value of football is absolutely huge.
And we've seen that with the recent World Cup in the US.
Absolutely.
And how, although we've thought in the past it wasn't an American sport, but I think how they've embraced it.
Well, again, I have some female American friends who play. So, female football is more common in America than male. But again, it's great. And I mean, the other thing also, I'll tell you another funny story. So I told you about going to different parts of the world. So when Diogo Jota's parents were kidnapped by people in Colombia, I said, we've got to go to Colombia to support Diogo. We went there for a holiday, had a great time, and then they sold him. So there you are.
Well, Robin, on that note,
Yeah.
lovely speaking to
And
you.
lovely to see you again.
Yeah.
And may I ask you a question?
Go.
How long are you going to carry on doing this then?
I say to myself, I say to people who ask me, I'm enjoying myself too much. It is an exciting time in the industry. I think I've written it as well in EE Times, but I've been 40 plus years in the industry. I've never seen it move so fast in terms of the pace of innovation. And people talk about lack of skills, lack of innovation, but I think where I live in England, UK, it's pretty strong, and I think I see that when I travel around the world. Anywhere I go in the world, it's amazing, and I think I just get. I think once you said to me, whenever we just say pick up the phone. I just like to speak to people, and I like to
me
get,
too.
and I get
and
to
WhatsApp is really handy for global communication, isn't it?
And getting that sense of what's going on in the industry is kind of what feeds my passion here.
Sure.
Well,
Okay, my
Robin.
pleasure. I hope you're happy with what we've done.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.